I now invite the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga to make his remarks. Thank you.
And we don't even use chopping boards.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Sweet life. Do I put the onions?
We have had a meeting with the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, my brother, Honorable Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi, who led a team of government officials. This was in regard to my candidacy for the African Union Commission Chairmanship. I wish to reiterate,
guys, remember while you're watching,
the obvious,
remember
that I'm vying for a position in Africa,
by the way, thank you
not in the government of the Republic of Kenya. But I need the endorsement of the government of Kenya for that African position.
Where I'm sweating.
At this meeting, we exchanged notes on the state of the quest so far, the preparations from my side and the government side, and the next steps that require to be taken. Offering to be part of this journey out of an understanding that we are in this as Kenya and not as partisan political parties. I appreciate the offer of support. I shared with the government team the situation and my levels of preparation from outside the government. I assured the team that on my own, I'm making every effort, tapping into my experience, relationships, and understanding of the continent to win the support of as many nations as I can. With committed and proper coordination between my team and the government, we should be able to clinch the seat. We agreed that coordination and synergy are going to be critical as we embark on the next critical steps that include the submission of my application. We therefore agreed on the need for efficiency, the need to cut bureaucracy, and unveil a well-oiled and flexible joint effort going forward. Like all campaigns, plans emerge and change suddenly. Demands arise and change suddenly, and we need to be able to respond to them as suddenly as they emerge. We also agreed on the need to understand the sensitivities in this quest that include national, regional, continental, and global dimensions to this quest, and therefore the need to always act responsibly, bearing all these sensitivities in mind. Once again, I thank Kenyans and the government for the support and the promise to keep updating the country on the status of the race. As I conclude, I just want to say that I have been requested by many friends, because many people have been surprised and wondering how I came to this. Many of my friends from outside Kenya approached me and told me that this position of AU chairmanship is becoming vacant next year. They have looked around the continent and feel that among the people who may offer themselves, you have the best credentials to take this organization forward. After lots of soul searching and consultations among my colleagues and friends, I made the decision to agree to accept the requests. As you know that I had been the African Union High Representative on Infrastructure Development for 5 years. That position gave me an inside picture of what is happening in the AU, what the potentialities are in the AU, what are the challenges, and what are the weaknesses that they exist there. I believe that I have sufficient knowledge and experience to be able to move the AU forward. AU is an institution that was founded by the founding fathers of our nation. And their dream was an Africa that was united, an Africa that was cohesive, an Africa that was developed. The development of Africa can only be done by Africans. I am myself a Pan-Africanist and an Afro-optimist. Afro-optimists as opposed to Afro-pessimists. Afro-pessimists are the people who have given hope in Africa, say that Africa is a lost cause, it's a condemned continent. Afro-optimists are those who believe in the ability of the African people to develop Africa. That Africa, the richest continent on the planet Earth in terms of resources, is also the poorest in terms of development. This is a paradox that we want to solve. We want Africans to be able to take charge of Africa. We want to expand the communication and trade among the African people. I was telling my brother here that when I was a student in Europe in the 60s, it was a nightmare to travel across the continent of Africa, of Europe. In Europe, to move from one country to the other, you needed a visa. And if you did not have a visa to transit in one country, they arrested you at the border and returned you where you come from. Today, you can travel across the whole of Europe, the Schengen visa. You want to enter somewhere and you can go to all parts of Europe. Yet in Africa, you still have a problem. Aliko Dangote, one of the most prominent African businessmen, was saying just the other day that he needs 35 visas to travel across the continent of Africa. His French counterpart, who is his competitor, does not need, using a French passport. With a Nigerian passport, you need 35 visas to travel on the continent of Africa. You ask yourself, why? Why can you not have one African visa? It can be done. We can connect the whole of this continent. And that's why I've been talking of the story of African lion. That the African lion must wake up now and claim the 21st century as the African century. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Ladies and gentlemen, having listened to Baba, I now wish to make the following concluding remarks. Indeed, despite the world becoming more fragmented and competitive,
comment, and even subscribe.
Kenya believes
thank you for clicking
that
to our
multipolarity
Thank you very much.
presents
You have
economic
done a good
and geopolitical opportunities for Africa Therefore, a whole of AU strategic approach to the emerging world will enable member states to project a common voice on global matters of consequence and enhance Africa's bargaining power for mutual benefit. And indeed, the Right Honorable Raila has summed this up. Therefore, for the continent to speak and act as one, the African Union Commission Chair the African Union will have to be more proactive and strategic in overcoming the persistent challenges that beset the African Union, namely funding shortages, logistical inadequacies, and the cyclic nature of conflicts. Additionally, the AU continues to grapple with cases of political instability and economic intricacies, weak international influence, and a new external influence driven by a new Cold War in the continent. As a continent, we therefore need to focus on dimensions that promote our unity and enhance sustainable development for the citizens of Africa. This will include infrastructural connectivity, and he has spoken briefly to that aspect from his previous assignment, reduction in costs of doing business in the continent, accelerating the realization of the visa-free program, and promoting a common language for Africa. Also important is environmental protection of the climate, environmental protection of the climate. The continent should work in one voice to campaign for reform of the international organizations and global financial institutions. The AU should be represented on the strategic international institutions, including membership to co-decision-making organs of the UN. We shall promote functional non-alignment that strategically seeks to establish mutually beneficial relationships globally. I may just want to emphasize here that the chairman of the AU Commission also holds the seat for Africa on the G20 forum. Ladies and gentlemen, the candidate, Honorable Raila Odinga, is a renowned champion of Think Africa above all. As per the AU values and inherently motivated by the AU vision, an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its citizens and representing a dynamic force in the global arena. Our continental body should increase Pan-African awareness among a critical mass of citizens and promote the Africanization of our elites to properly contribute to Africa's development goals and discourses. Kenya therefore envisions an AU that drives the continent beyond silencing the guns to achieving peace, sustainable peace, and security for collective prosperity. We have a long experience of supporting the AU and regional bodies, as well as bilateral engagements to foster peace and security regionally and globally. We envisage an AU that will give a greater voice to the continental crisis that have often become forgotten conflicts, as other global crises elsewhere get huge humanitarian and political attention. As a government and a country, we wish the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga God's speed in this noble endeavor for the continent. God bless Kenya and God bless Africa. Asanteni sana.
Asante sana.
there could be just a few questions.
Thank you, Excellency. We'll have a few questions. We have Brenda step forward.
Thank you so much. I have a couple of questions that can be answered by both the candidates, Right Honorable Raila Odinga and
The South could be just a few questions.
I have a couple of questions that could be answered
Thank you,
by
Excellency.
either
We'll have
the candidate, the
few
Right Honorable
questions.
Raila
We
Odinga,
have
or the Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Brenda step forward.
You have told us you have told us about the benefits that Africa stands to gain from Mr. Raila's candidature. What does Kenya stand to gain strategically for you going for that AU seat? And secondly, the Prime Cabinet Secretary has told us that the President and yourself have been already reaching out to your counterparts from the region and beyond the region, the East African region, trying to get support and push for Mr. Raila's candidature. What is the status of that push? Thank you. My name is Brenda Wanga from Mr. Raila's candidature. What does Kenya stand to gain strategically for you going for that AU seat? And secondly,
first of all,
the Prime Cabinet Secretary has told us
a
that the President and
Kenya
yourself have been already
is
reaching out to your
dependent
counterparts
on a
from the region
prosperous Africa.
and beyond the region, the East African
And
region,
we want to
trying
make
to
it
get
very
support
clear
and push for Mr. Raila's candidature. What is the status of that
as
push?
Raila champions
My name is Brenda Wanga from Mr. Raila's
issues that
candidature.
affect the African
What does
continent.
Kenya stand to
Maybe
gain strategically
Kenya
for you
is
going for
part
that
and
AU
parcel
seat? And
of
secondly,
what we shall be
the
champions.
Prime Cabinet Secretary has
So
told
we
us
assure
that the President
that
and
Kenya,
yourself
as we
have been
move
already
this
reaching out to your
continent
counterparts
on a
from the
prosperous
region
Kenya is also
and
a
beyond the
beneficiary.
region, the East African
And
region,
the second one, to
trying
make
to
it
get
very
support
clear
and
from a
push for
Kenyan
Mr. Raila's
perspective
candidature.
that
What is the status of that
as
push?
we must look at it also
My
as
name
a
is Brenda Wanga
national
from Mr. Raila's
issues that
candidature.
affect the
What
African
does
continent.
Kenya
This is
stand to
not
gain strategically
Kenya,
for you
a
going for that
localized
AU
issue.
seat? And secondly,
It's not
the Prime Cabinet
a village
Secretary
challenge.
has told
We
us
assure
that the
this is
President
a
and
national
yourself have been
interest
already reaching out to your
for the people of
counterparts from the
Kenya
region
is
and
also
beyond
as
the
they
region, the East
prepare
African
and
region,
offer leadership to
trying
make
to
it
get
very
support
clear
and
from a
push for
Kenyan
Mr. Raila's
perspective
candidature.
that
What is the status of that
as we
push?
must look at it also
My
as
name
a
is Brenda Wanga
national
from Mr. Raila's
issues that
candidature.
affect the
What
African
does
continent.
Kenya
This is
stand to
not
gain strategically
Kenya,
for you
a
going for that
localized
AU
issue.
seat? And secondly,
It's not
the Prime Cabinet
a village
Secretary
challenge.
has told
We
us
assure
that the
this is
President
a
and
national
yourself
interest.
and
offer
region,
leadership to
trying
make
to
it
get
very
support
clear
and
from a
push for
Kenyan
Mr. Raila's
perspective
candidature.
that
What is the status of that
as
push?
we must look at it that affect the
What
African
is
continent.
Which makes it very difficult for goods to move from one African country to another African country. Secondly, there is infrastructure challenges that makes it very difficult for Africa to trade with itself. You know, Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is now 2 years old. But still very little progress has been made, which makes it very difficult because of this move from one African country to another African country. As the High Representative, secondly, there is infrastructure challenges. I knew I makes it very difficult for Africa to trade. We've been talking about intra-African highways. Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is now the Dakar to Djibouti. But still very little progress has been made. Lagos, very difficult because of this pass from one African country to another, and so on and so forth. As the High Representative, secondly, there is continental high-speed railway network. I knew I looked at the challenge. One, you will talk about intra-African Bay highways. Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the old Benguela line. Now the Dakar to Lobito, but still early to promise cash, Lagos, very difficult. Lagos, the other one is so on and so forth. High-speed railway and from Lagos to high-speed railway network. I knew the other one is our lapse Beira intra-African highway, South Sudan, continental transport area, the old Benguela line, as the representative of the EU on the other one is actually extended high-speed railway and from Lagos to the other one is our create a land bridge that links the Atlantic Ocean with the Indian Ocean. Benguela line, opening up the interior of the continent to the Atlantic on the other one, for example, Kenya actually extended gross steel. How does Kenya export steel to Central African Republic? The other one is between Kenya and Central African Republic. There's only South Sudan, Atlantic Ocean. That is coordinating funding for the infrastructure. If you want to do the LAPSET, Kenya can only do its part up to the border with South Sudan. Then South Sudan needs to take it from there to the border with Central African Republic. Central African Republic takes it to Cameroon and to reach there. But you need a center to be able to coordinate funding, to mobilize funding for this infrastructure development, which are cutting across the continent. That is why those things have not been done. That's why even the trans-African highways have not been done, and so on. So, getting there, we are also talking about the high-speed fiber optic network connecting all the African capitals. We're talking about open skies, to be able to move freely in the African airspace without so much impediment. At the moment, traveling across Africa is a major problem. Recently, when I was going to the funeral of the president of Namibia, we chartered an aircraft here. We had to spend 3 hours at Wilson Airport waiting for clearances of airspaces, the transit countries. You have to get a clearance to fly over Tanzanian airspace, DRC, Zambia, Botswana, and Namibia itself. And it's expensive. The other day, I was in Salam, going to Niamey, Niger. There, you had spent 10 hours waiting. You need a clearance over Uganda, over DRC, over Central African Republic, over Cameroon, Nigeria, and Niger. And that is what is making the air transport in the continent so expensive. It is easier to move goods by air. It is easier to put the facilities across the continent. And then have also an African continental air traffic control. In Europe, you only need one permit and you can fly all over the countries of Europe. Here, you need to get permission from Nairobi, Dar es Salaam, Kinshasa, Lusaka, going down those sides. So all this is what is making inter-African trade difficult. I've told you about the issues of visas. It's another problem, and so on and so forth. We've been talking about making the Nile River navigable, so that you can be able to move from Mediterranean Sea to Lake Victoria. Ships can move from Europe and don't have to go around the Horn to come to our coastal side. You can go right on the Nile to Lake Victoria and land there in Jinja, in Kampala, in Kisumu, and in Mwanza. Those are some of the projects that could be done. And if you open up those way, Kenya will be a major beneficiary, and Africa generally. So we have ideas which we think, if implemented, will improve the inter-African trade. Thank you.
Asante sana. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. In the interest of time, Your Excellency, we are unable to take more questions because the Prime Space is needed somewhere in Nandi in the next few. More? Okay, one question.
Excellencies, my name is Mwangi Maina from the Isili Voice. First question to the former Premier. Some Kenyans and some Africans feel that Nairobi fronting your candidature is a way of settling domestic political scores. Do you think you're exporting domestic politics to Addis Ababa? The other question to you, former Premier, it's about the Kenya stance, Kenya openly standing with Israel, which has been committing a genocide in Gaza. Do you think this could potentially impact your candidature at the African Union Commission next year because of such global geopolitical standing?
Asante Mwangi, thank you.
No, I mean, I'm a Kenyan, and as I mentioned, nobody has asked me. The Kenya government did not ask me. I made a decision myself that I want to offer myself to serve the continent. And as you know, you cannot run for this position without being sponsored by your country. Your candidature is not valid until your country has said yes. So I was myself pleasantly surprised that the Kenya government said they would support me. I was expecting them to say no. I don't know the reason why they said yes. That is their own decision, it's not mine.
I'll tell you why we said yes. We said yes because Raila is competent. Yes. And we are looking at Kenya's national interests and Africa's national interests. So this is not about our local issues. And we do not want, and we really want to get the Fourth Estate to help us to project the national interests of Kenya, because it would be a first for Kenya. And it would be an opportunity for Kenya to offer leadership to the African Union. And Raila Amolo Odinga has got the requisite experience. As I said in another forum, he has seen both hot and cold. And Africa is beaming with both hot and cold. And Raila is required on the African continent.
Your Excellency.
On the issue of Israel, it's just, I think yesterday, the Gaza issue, I issued a very clear statement on behalf of the Republic of Kenya, where I said that Kenya stands for a two-state solution, so that Israel stands as a nation, and the people of Palestine should also have their state as a nation. So under no circumstances is Kenya favoring one against the other. What is important is that the conflict in the Middle East, like in other where there is conflict elsewhere, we call for a peaceful resolution as soon as possible, because the humanitarian crisis is huge.
Your Excellency, my name is Jeff Kirui from KTN News.
Jeff.
Yes.
We are done, Jeff. Please, Jeff.
Please, Your Excellency.
Tafadhali, Prime anafaa kwenda mbali. Tafadhali. Let's end it there.
Yes, the question is regarding EAC. They have been pushing for one candidate. The newest kid on the block, Somalia, has its candidate. In the eastern region, we have Djibouti and Seychelles who also have candidates. Is it a concern to you that this might complicate matters, considering the two-third requirement to clinch the seat? And also, could you clarify on the composition of your campaign team?
As I said here, that we are focusing on Kenya's candidacy. Yeah. Other countries that have their wish to front a candidate will speak about their own. But for now, as far as we are concerned, we have a long journey to go to campaign, and our candidate is Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. And as I indicated in my earlier remarks, that the strategy is in place, and we shall be looking at all the challenges and opportunities as we go along. And I think I should also tell you that subsequent to this, I think the lady had asked, I want to emphasize that our president has also made several strides in talking to his counterparts across Africa. And all that, I'm sure, will count for something in the next few months. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are now going to the next session, photo session, very quickly. Can I be assisted to move the podiums, please?